Hi, happy Friday, back with the Friendship War. Today we get to figure out what happened at lunch with the buttons. So, Chapter 7, Buttons for Lunch. At our table in the cafeteria, the eating part of the lunch period is over quickly. Since the main event was Ellie's idea, she takes charge. Which is what I thought would happen. Let's get the table cleared off. Yeah, but maybe keep your trays. That's Hank, interrupting Ellie. She shoots a look at him before continuing. And yes, keep a tray if you want to. Once everyone is back and settled, Ellie says, I think Grace should go first. Then we can go around to the table to the left. So besides the buttons you had yesterday, did you find any others at home? Yes. I'm lost, scattered, totally flustered. Because my plan was to wait until everyone else was done and then dump out my bag of buttons and calmly enjoy everyone's amazement, especially Ellie's. And now I don't know what to do, plus my stomach is still hurting. I reach into my backpack and pull out one bag, a mix of green, blue, red, and yellow buttons, all about the size of a nickel. I have these. I pour out the buttons onto a tray and slide it to my left, and in a flash I see why Ellie started things off this way, so her buttons would be the last ones revealed. Ellie smiles at my tray. Nice colors, she says. But to me it seems like she's only being polite. Cody's on my left, and from the pocket of his hoodie he pulls out a dark blue sock with a bulge down in the toe. Ew, gross! Taylor slides as far away from Cody as she can get. What? It's not stinky, if that's what you're worried about. And in case you didn't know, the plastic bags are terrible for the environment. Cody empties his buttons onto a tray and then stuffs the sock back into his pocket. There are 4 or 5 bright orange ones, 3 large red ones, several dozens in different shades of gray and tan, 15 or 20 black ones, and then lots of smaller white buttons. To my eye, the most interesting buttons on his tray are the largest black ones. They have an anchor and rope design cut into the surface. I've got 30 or 40 like that. I point at one. I'm pretty sure that's a U.S. Navy button. Cody picks it up. Yeah, that's what my mom said. These were on my dad's old jacket, but when he burned a big hole in it on a fishing trip, she only kept the buttons. And that's it for Cody. Taylor starts pulling small plastic bags out of her backpack. When my mom was a junior in high school, she and her big sister got into decorating stuff with buttons, lampshades and coasters and glass jars, all kinds of things. We still have some of the coasters, and my mom kept all of the buttons they ever used. I'm not allowed to get them mixed together. We've got some other regular buttons too, but I didn't bring them. There are at least 15 bags on Taylor's tray, and even though the colors are different, the buttons look identical, each a little bigger than the kind used on the front of a shirt. Kevin is next, and his buttons aren't in a plastic bag or a sock. He just pulls a few handfuls from his pocket. These are from the sewing box in our family room. There are more, but I was almost late for the bus this morning, so that's it. These look a lot like Cody's mix, only I don't spot any U.S. Navy buttons, but I do see 4 that are made of pewter. They all have the same raised design on the surface, a swan. It's Hank's turn, and he stands up and spreads out 5 white sheets of poster board, each one a little bigger than a regular piece of printer paper. Every sheet has buttons on it mounted in rows and columns, and every button is fastened in place with a thin black wire threaded into holes poked through the board. I searched for all the loose buttons at my house yesterday, and then I got them organized, first by color, then by shape and size, and also by number of holes they have, 2 or 4, except for buttons like this brass one and this little round topped blue one. This kind just has a single loop on the back. I recorded how many of each separate kind I have. That's the number I wrote underneath some of them, and I mounted the buttons like this because I looked online, and for this sort of how collectors organize them. It's not really done yet. Everyone is kind of blown away by Hank's presentation, but I'm not surprised. Hank and I teamed up for the 4th grade science fair. When we were working at his house one Saturday, I saw his butterfly and moth collection, over 150 different species, from tiny ones with delicate white wings to brilliant green Luna moth bigger than my dad's hand. Each insect was perfectly mounted and labeled. 6 or 7 other kids have come over to stand around our table, some from my homeroom and others from Mr. Scott's and Mrs. Casey's rooms. A few 5th graders, too. Everyone is leaning forward, and they remind me of a quiet audience at some of those golf tournaments on TV. Brooke and Diana don't bring a lot, about as many as Kevin. The most interesting thing on either of their trays is some cloth-covered buttons Brooke found. Finally, it's Ellie's turn. We've got at least 12 extra spectators now, and she smiles at them and says, "Sorry, there's not enough room for you to sit at the table. I hope you can see everything anyway. First of all, I have some military buttons, which are very special." Ellie pauses, making sure she has our full attention. "My great-grandfather joined the United States Army in 1918, and then after World War I, he stayed in the Army until he became a captain, and these are the buttons of some of his clothes. These huge ones are from a heavy overcoat. The oldest buttons are brown metal ones. They were actually on his uniform when he was fighting in France during the war. And these shiny brass ones came from his captain uniform later on. Now these 6 buttons, they're from a U.S. Marine uniform that my grandfather's brother wore. I never met him because he died in the Vietnam War, when my grandmother was still in high school. I'll pass them around, but please don't take them out of the protective bag." Ellie has used 2 different cafeteria trays now, and she has 5 more stacked in front of her. She's got a whole little show planned out, like something going on the History Channel. I don't know whether to be impressed or annoyed or jealous, so all 3 feelings are banging around inside of me. And Ellie keeps going. "These 9 buttons, they're from my great-aunt Ellen's wedding dress. She's the person I'm named for. See how they shine when you tilt them? They're made from semi-precious stone called white opal. Aunt Ellen gave them to my mom so I could wear them someday on my wedding dress, and I didn't even know that until last night. So amazing." The wedding dress buttons, also in plastic, get to parade around the table on a tray of their own. I think these might be my favorite. My dad told me that back in 1898, his great-grandparents bought a farm in southern Illinois, and these 2 buttons came from a pair of overalls that my great-great-grandfather wore almost every day. Ellie passes them to me. They're made of brass, and raised up on the front of each button are 2 words, "Stronghold." I want to ask her what else she knows about her great-great-grandparents, but Ellie's not slowing down on anything. "Okay, so these 12 shiny black buttons, they're carved from a stone called onyx, and my mother told me how she wore them on a long blue gown." There's a muffled laugh to my left, but it's not about Ellie's show. Kevin and Cody have moved, so they're sitting next to each other, and my tray's between them. They're piling up buttons, seeing who can build the tallest stack before it topples. Ellie looks too. She pauses to frown at them. But the guys don't stop. She's taking too long, and she knows it. "I've got this one last thing. My grandmother on my mother's side of the family, after my grandfather died, she took all his wool business suits and used the cloth to make a giant quilt. And I've seen it, mostly gray and blue and brown, kind of ugly. But she also kept every single button from all of those suits. And here they are. And it's like all I have left of my grandfather now is this little bag of buttons. Do you think that is so sad?" It gets very still. Kevin, Taylor, Brooke, Hank, and all the kids around the lunch table are genuinely moved by what Ellie just said. I feel a little choked up too, and kind of ashamed, because I've been sitting here gritting my teeth while Ellie does her dramatic, super expanded show and tell, and I'm feeling like she's showing off, and of course, Ellie is showing off. But at this moment, it's a side of her I haven't seen very often, maybe only 3 or 4 times in all the days we've been hanging around together. And what made Ellie get so thoughtful and full of feelings? Some old buttons, which is totally strange. And it's also touching and sort of sweet. And seeing that, it's a good reminder that Ellie knows how to be sweet when she wants to be. And this makes me happy in a way I hadn't expected. Ellie knows she just hit the high point in her big show. So all these other buttons? They're just from sewing projects and stuff. As Ellie pours the contents of large Tupperware containers onto her last 2 trays, I can tell that a lot of these buttons are nicer than the ones other kids had. Probably just from more expensive clothes, maybe from Paris, like her sneakers. And now I'm mad at myself again for getting all snarky and jealous. Again. Because that's the problem. Ellie keeps making me feel this way. And of course, this is my perfect opportunity to make her feel jealous. About 15 other kids are standing around our table now, and I've got a chance to one-up the one-uppiest girl in the world, to show that Ellie does not have the most, and the best, and the prettiest. Not this time. All I have to do is reach down into my backpack, pull out 7 other plastic bags, and then drop my button bomb, a massive assortment of colors and designs and sizes, kaboom! But I don't. It doesn't feel like something a best friend would do, and that's all, or even just a friend. And it isn't like Ellie put her little show to try to make me feel jealous. She's just being herself. And besides all that, I still kind of like the feeling that I have a secret. It's like I'm super rich, but no one has a clue. Hey, Grace. Cody and I are trying to figure out a game here, and we need 6 green buttons and 6 blue ones. Do you maybe want to swap some buttons with us? The question catches me by surprise, and I hear myself saying, no, that's okay. Just go ahead and take the ones you want. I've got a lot there. Really? Thanks? So, could I have 4, but all different colors? It's James Kinney, one of the kids from Mr. Scott's homeroom. Sure, I say. And then some other kids jump right in. Can I have 4? How about 5? I'm almost laughing now. Anybody who wants to could take up to 6 buttons from my tray, okay? The right away, everyone waits for a turn to take 6, including all of the speculators, plus Ellie. Then Ellie says, and if anyone wants to take 1 or maybe 2 of my buttons from my last trays right here, go ahead, because my mom said I could do whatever I want with them. And everybody takes 1 or 2, including all the spectators, plus me. Some other kids begin drifting over to see what's going on, and Ellie quickly gathers up her buttons. She says, I'm really glad I thought of this. It was kind of fun, don't you think? A few kids smile at her, but most of them are still gathering around my tray, trying to decide if they picked the right buttons, or if she should trade some in for different colors. The tray is almost empty. 4 minutes later and the bell rings. I walk out to the cafeteria headed for math class with Mrs. Lang, and I've got the strongest feeling that something just happened, and I'm not sure what. So I lay out the facts, which are simple. A bunch of kids looked at a bunch of buttons from a bunch of different homes and places, and then a bunch more kids gathered around to watch. Another fact, when I offered some free buttons, nobody refused. Everybody took 6, and also 1 or 2 of Ellie's. So right now, more than 20 kids are walking around school with 7 or 8 buttons clicking in their pockets. Buttons none of them knew they wanted until a few minutes ago. Another odd fact, it felt so easy to give most of mine away. Actually, I just waved goodbye to about 130 buttons. But Ellie, she didn't really want to give away even 1 of hers. How come? That's simple too. Ellie's buttons have history. They mean something to her. The way the smooth gray stone on my dresser means something to me. But these boxes of buttons from Grandpa's mill? To me, they're just buttons. The main fact, these completely ordinary little objects seem to be changing right in front of my eyes. But why? And how? That's not clear, so I'm going to need more data. The only thing I'm pretty sure of, whatever's going on, it's not over. As I walk into Mrs. Lang's room, I notice one more fact. My stomach is feeling perfectly fine. All right, have a great Friday and have a great weekend. I'll see you back on Monday.